Elaine Bradley, drummer for Neon Trees, thank you so much for being part of 3 Questions today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you are a Mormon, a returned missionary, a wife and mother, recently moved from Orem, Utah to Germany of all places, and we'll hear about that in just a minute. And you just happen to be the drummer in a very popular rock and roll band. How big a club is this that you're part of?
How big of a club?
Yeah, how many people do what you do?
Oh, I don't know. I wonder, maybe we could have like class reunions of sorts, get together once a year, powwow about it. I don't know. I don't know any others.
So you're an active Latter-day Saint. Indeed,
yeah.
You're a wife and mother. You recently moved from Orem. You play drums in a rock and roll band. And there aren't many people like you out there.
No, there aren't.
Tell me about that. How did you wind up here?
Oh, well, where to start? I think from a very early age I was blessed with an ability to not care what other people think enough to ever stop me from doing anything, mixed with a healthy dose of gender doesn't matter. I don't know where I got it. My parents weren't like activists or like, you know, they didn't care, they didn't push me to do anything, but from a young age I was always very interested in sports and music, and I just went for it. You know, I just did what I wanted to do, and I never thought, oh, drumming's not a girl thing, or, you know, I just never thought that way. I thought, oh, that's cool, I want to do it, and so I did it.
Now, tell me about the relationship between sports and music, because I know you feel a real kinship there.
I do. Well, especially drumming.
Yes.
You being a drummer yourself, did everybody know this? I hope they did.
Well, they do now.
Yep. I think especially drumming is very physical and even athletic coordination-wise, you know, but I think the training is similar, the training in music versus the training in athletics. And, you know, you have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do in the moment to do what you do want to do, play the game or play the show. So, I don't know, I see them very parallel.
I've heard you say that you never intended to be the drummer in a rock and roll band, and yet here you are.
Indeed.
How did that happen?
A series of circumstances. So I did start playing the drums just because I thought it was fun, but I never thought, oh, I want to be the drummer in a band. I always thought I want to be the singer in a band. So I did the drums as like a fun thing, but it was never in my mind serious. I kind of always wanted to, you know, be the center of attention, and the drummer doesn't really get that title, you know? So it wasn't my thing.
Yeah.
And in high school, I went to start a band with my friends freshman year, you know, and I was the only one who could play the drums. So it was one of those like, okay, fine. I'll play the drums until we find a drummer. But I'll also sing.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I started that way. I started singing and play the drums in a band. And then we did, 2 years later, find a drummer. And he was really good. I was never that great, I'll be honest. So he was really good. And then that's when in those 2 years in the band playing the drums, looking at the guitar, I had learned guitar. So then I switched to guitar and played the guitar for 7 years or so, and sang in the band while another drummer did the drums. And that's when I learned how to play the drums, because I played guitar and I would watch him during practice and be like, oh, well, that would be how you should play the drums, or that's cool. So I spent those 7 years learning from that drummer, as well as listening to music and kind of, you know, dissecting it and figuring out air drumming in cars and whatnot, you know. So that's kind of how I learned to play the drums. Then I left to go on a mission. I left being a guitarist and a singer in a band. And while I was on my mission, I met a guy named Bryce Taylor, and our mission president was very loose with the music rules. And since I was in the mission, he would let the missionaries sometimes listen to my music, even though it was not
necessarily approved.
It was not like Disney. Disney's even fast and loose sometimes.
Yeah.
It was rock music.
Yeah.
So he was in the office elder's car one time and heard the music, and he was like, who is this? What? And my name at the time was Dodie. Sister Dodie? Oh man, I've got to get in touch with her, because he played in a band in high school before or whatever. So, you know, in his mind it was like, oh, we should get together. I don't know what he was thinking. I don't know. So he gets permission from our mission president to call me on the mission and say, hey, come back and come to Utah, because I was from Chicago. So he's like, hey, I don't know you, you don't know me, but I've heard your music and I think you're awesome. Let's play music together. And I chalked that up to the dozens of, yeah, we should get together type of thing. Oh, cool. It never happens, right? Because I hate jamming anyway.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, fine, cool. Here's the number where I'll be after the mission, whatever. And I got home, 6 weeks later he got home, he called me on the phone every Sunday. When you coming out? when you come into Utah, come on out. And so I actually had really no firm plans to go to Utah, but his constant request, I was like, oh, how can I not apply to BYU? I'll just apply, see what happens. So I applied, I got in, I got a academic scholarship. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. Okay. So I went and we played guitars together, and it wasn't that awesome. And so that's why I switched to the drums, because I felt bad. It's like, here you are calling me every Sunday, and he's one of my best friends now, so we're still in a band together. So it was one of those things where I was like, I don't want to burn this bridge, and I feel bad, and that was the whole point. So
you're a sympathy drummer.
Yeah,
then,
I was like, I have the drums from when I was a kid. You know, I brought them out to college with me because I like to record, and so we played together, and it wound up working out, and it was really fun. And I played in that band, and that's how I met the guys in Neon Trees, because our bands played together, and so fate.
And
I'm now the drummer in Neon Trees.
Yeah. So and then you started to practice.
No.
You don't.
No, at practice, like at rehearsal. That's the only time I practice, really.
Really?
I mean, now that I'm in Neon Trees, I kind of have to practice outside because we don't have rehearsal like you did in college days where it's like, hey, let's get together once a week because we all live in different places. So I kind of have to out of necessity, but even then it's with music in the headphones to the music. I just, practicing by myself, listening to the drums is a very harsh reality for me. I like to not do it.
Does it all seem like a whirlwind to you? I mean,
No.
Here you go from doing a guy a favor to play the drums with him from an old mission buddy to now here you are the drummer of Neon Trees.
I mean, I guess if I hadn't lived it, it would seem like a whirlwind, but I've lived it, and it seemed very tedious and like a real grind.
Tell me about those early years. Tell me about the early years of Neon Trees, because from what I understand, it was very, very difficult.
Yeah, it wasn't awesome. Well, in the beginning, so Chris and Tyler, Chris is our guitarist, Tyler's our singer, they've always been Neon Trees since like, I think it was 2004 or 5 or whatever when they started, just them two in California.
There were just 2 trees at that time, yes.
And so Chris came out to massage school in Utah. Tyler followed him to play in a band with him. So they played with a couple of other guys as Neon Trees while I played in this other band called Another Statistic, the one where I was doing a favor or whatever. And so those days, it was very like, the Provo music scene was very exciting, and there was a healthy competition among bands. We'd play bad other bands, take it really seriously, and who could draw the most to shows. So that's the kind of climate we like met each other in. And it was interesting about the same time that my band was being sifted the wheat from the chaff as far as who's serious about doing it and who is going to go get a job, and their band was doing the same thing, like, hey, we're really serious about this, you guys don't seem to want to sacrifice, what do we do? So it was like perfect timing for us to say, hey, let's do this, because I saw a lot of potential with Chris and Tyler. They're both very talented people, and I enjoyed watching them play. Our bands played together, so it wasn't a stretch to be like, hey, you guys, like, I like what you're doing. I was actually dating Chris at the time. We quickly realized that our music was our thing. And so we broke the relationship off and then kept playing in bands together. So we kind of schemed to get me in. Tyler thought I was just filling in, and we knew otherwise. Yeah.
So, and then the band moved to California.
We did, and people like to envision this. When you say the band moved to California, they envisioned glitz, glamour, LA, Hollywood. We moved to the Inland Empire we call it the beige curtain, where everything is beige. It's where Chris and Tyler grew up. And so we were all living, like Tyler lived around the corner in his parents' house, and I was living in Chris's parents' old house with Chris and Brandon when he was there. And so it was a dark time. We would practice all the time and like take any show possible. And that meant playing for like 5 people or 10 people. And it was very bleak. But what's funny about that is the 4 of us, the way that we looked at it, we never thought we should stop or maybe this won't work. It was always, hey, if we can do that, and then this will come and this will happen. And so it was nice to be surrounded with like-minded people who were willing to go through the grind and the nasty, bleak parts of trying to make, music, trying to hustle your art, because it's not fun to not be successful, but the thing that you're doing is so fun. We never let that be cheapened, and that was nice. So I think I can attribute, a lot of our success to the fact that we didn't give up. And so those times were then justified by eventual success, but that success was eventual. I mean, we moved to California in 2007, and Animal came out in 2010, and that's what really catapulted us. So there are 3 years, 3 unaccounted years that were not a whirlwind.
Well, I don't think you could emphasize enough the importance of the grind in success stories, in any success story. And as you have kind of reflected on where you've come from, what it has taken for you to get where you are now, it must enliven and envalue, if there is such a word.
I hope so.
It must give value to what you have been through and now where you are.
I think, yeah, it's like, it's which came first, you know, the chicken or the egg, because it does, getting to the success part does give value to the struggle, but the struggle gives value to the success. Because if we had just, you know, been discovered how people envision it, like playing our first show and then like someone comes up to us and goes, you got a hit song, hey Martha, you know, and then you go on the road and now we're playing to stadiums. It's like if we had had that happen.
That thing you do.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't think that we would really appreciate it. And I also don't think we would stay working hard. But because of where we came from, we never feel comfortable. And also the music business is just fickle. So you can't feel comfortable, and everybody is desperate in the music business, no matter how successful you are. It's just everyone's desperate. So I think because we struggled so hard in the beginning, we're able to deal with the bad parts of the music business because, you know, we love what we do so much that we were willing to sacrifice for it, and we still are. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's first. It's just, I think it's a mindset, and it just breeds success. That's the hope, at least, right? I don't know what we would have done. Would we still be doing it? Would we still be like grinding it out by now?
Perhaps.
In 2017, 10 years later?
Who knows?
I don't know. Who knows?
Hard to know. So I would guess that you, as the drummer now, you are past that point where you are hoping for someone else to come in and be the real drummer so that you can step out from behind the kit and become the lead singer just like Karen Carpenter.
No, I always, this is what I tell Tyler, is I really wouldn't play behind anyone else. You know, he's such a talented person that I don't feel like, oh, that should be me. You know what I mean? He's such a talent, and he's a joy to support, really, you know? He's good at what he does, and so he gives me no room to be like, well, I could do it better, you know? So I'm very happy playing the drums in Neon Trees, but I still do other things, you know?
Being in the music industry and going on the road and touring with the band and all of the grind that you have described to us, it can be very, very hard on individuals and on families. How have you remained grounded through all of that?
I'm on a team. That team is my husband and, you know, and I together, and we're making decisions together. And I think it's funny culturally how when a man is successful, nobody says, how do you do it? I mean, unless it's something like running 7 marathons in a row, then we would be like, how do you do it? Because that makes no sense. Yeah. But if a man is a successful rock star, he rarely gets the questions, how? But if a woman does something in the public eye and is successful, how does she do it? Like, it's some crazy mystery because there's no way that she could possibly have a man supporting her. That would be unthinkable, you know? And so it's like this weird thing where I get that question a lot. You're a mother though. How? And it's like, because there's a father, that's how. And he's completely engaged and we're on the same page and we check back in with each other all the time. How you doing? How you doing? How's your role? Great. How's mine? Wonderful. What can we do to make it better? How do we make this work? And that's how, you know, like it's not that hard because we're on the same page and because we both deem it worth the sacrifices of my not being there as much as I would if I, you know, didn't work or if I had a different job at home. But even still, if you combine the hours of a person, like let's say I had a 9-to-5 grind, which rarely is ever 9 to 5, it's like 7 to 6, you know? Yeah. If I had that thing going on Monday through Friday, I really think I would be gone more. Because when I'm home, I'm home. Yeah. When I go to Germany and hang out for 2 weeks, I am around for 2 weeks, you know, and I see them all day long. I'm there at night, I'm there in the morning, you know, so.
You're their mom.
It's a trade-off. Well, do I see them a bunch like all the time, or do I see them just, you know, every evening? I don't think that one's like, I don't know. To me, I like what I do more than if I had a regular job.
You're part of the I'm a Mormon campaign.
Indeed.
How did that come about?
They reached out and said, "Are you active still?" Because they got to check.
Yeah.
You got to.
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And they said, "We would like to feature you in the I'm a Mormon campaign. Does that interest you?" And I said, yes, that's fine. And it happened. And they filmed it, and then 2 years later it came out.
Wow.
It was crazy. Yeah, I had that newborn, like, infant son, and then when it came out, he was like walking and talking. And like
Driving
a human.
the car.
I had another child. Yeah, it was crazy.
Are you satisfied with how it turned out?
Yeah. I mean, you know, selfishly, I wish it were longer. But no, I thought they did a good job. It's who I am. It's how I feel about stuff. I liked the way that they did it because it wasn't like a reality show where it's like partially scripted and they say, "We'd like you to say this in your own words."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
They just say, "Hey, talk about this," or how they ask questions like this. Talk about how you developed a relationship with Jesus or with God, you know, and stuff like that. And I just got to answer it, and then they whittled down my extremely long-winded answers. So I'm happy with it. Are you happy with it?
I'm happy with it. I think it's a fine spot.
Sure.
Do you find any incongruity in what you do for a living and being a Latter-day Saint?
I find total incongruity with being a human and being a Latter-day Saint. And that is the struggle. The struggle is real. I have so much to say on this matter, but I'll try and whittle it down. So I don't think that my business is inherently like worse than someone else's business, honestly, because it's just full of people, you know? And yeah, like maybe people who do my job typically drink more at work, but I don't think the rates of like alcohol consumption are higher generally. I just really don't. There are some bands who choose to see it as a career and a job and they don't show up to work drunk, and some do, you know, and I don't know. For me, living life is hard enough, and I don't think it really matters where you are as long as you know who you are. That's so profound.
It is
Just
profound.
let that wash over you. But really, my dad used to always say when I left the house, "Remember who you are." And he used to be, "Oh, whatever, Dad." But now that I'm a parent, it's totally, you know,
You're
please,
saying it
children,
now.
remember who you are. Because if you know who you are and what you want and where you're going, there's just not much about your environment, people in your environment, that can change your trajectory. You know, if you are working on you and are aware of where you're going and what will get you there and what won't, it's just not that hard. It's just not that hard to say, "No, I don't want to do that," or "Nah, not for me," because that doesn't line up. So I think people who already struggle with figuring out what they want to do, how they want to do it, where they're going, not going to thrive in the job that I have. But they're also probably not going to thrive working at Nike. You know, they're not going to thrive working at Amazon because they're going to be surrounded by people there too
IBM,
who have all sorts of opinions about how to live life and what they think is stupid and what they think is worthwhile. So I don't know. To me, it's never been really an issue where I work. My issue has always been, what kind of human do I want to be and how am I struggling? So I don't know.
Has externally, has it ever made a difference where someone says, "Well, these neon trees guys, and gal, they're all Mormons, and so or most of them are, we shouldn't do this," or has it ever affected the band that way at all?
I mean, but back in the day when we all claimed to not drink, we sometimes got made fun of in interviews, like backhandedly made fun of, which we thought was really weird. You know, in what other business would you be treated like you're foolish for not drinking at work? I don't know. Tell me one. Maybe a wine tasting business.
Perhaps.
I think that would be the only one. But yeah, so I don't know. I think it's been kind of just what it is, you know. And as our views have changed now, as we've all not been on the same page, that's been interesting to navigate. But it hasn't affected me as far as like self-doubt, like, oh, maybe I'm doing the wrong, because I know what I want to do, and I know who I am, and I know how I want my relationships to be, and I've made commitments to my husband in certain ways, and I have a commitment to my children to be a certain way, and so that stuff all outweighs any kind of outward, like, well, it might be easier, because you know how easy it would be for me to lie on tour?
Oh, sure.
I could do whatever I wanted, and they would never know. But what's beautiful about it is I'm not a good liar. And I would feel so guilty that I would have to immediately tell Sebastian. So actually, Sebastian's my husband.
Yeah.
So when I'm on tour and a question presents itself and I wonder, that sounds kind of fun. Maybe I would like an iced coffee. Not a big deal, by the way, but maybe I would. Yeah. And then I think, but then I'd have to tell Sebastian, hey, I had an iced coffee today. And he'd be like, really, why?
What? Why?
No, he wouldn't even be like, what? He'd be like, why? And I'd be like, good question. I don't know, because I've already committed not to drink that, and for other reasons. It's not about the coffee, you know what I mean, to me.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like, it gives me no license to judge other people, but every license to judge myself, and so that's the standard by which I judge myself. What have I told other people that I'm going to do, and why? And let's live that way, because it's too difficult not to. It's way more difficult to not keep your promises to people than it is to like try and weasel your way out of not keeping them and then lying, and I don't know. It seems complicated.
Too hard to keep track of all those.
It's true. I'll just live straight up.
Well, I have to say, it's too bad that you're not headstrong because and outspoken, because otherwise you might get rolled
I might
over.
crumble.
Yeah, yeah.
No, yeah, but they have a word for that for women.
What is that?
I can't say it on television.
Okay, then.
For men, it's strong and assertive, and for women, it's something else.
Ah, all right. We'll let you imagine.
Exactly.
You bring up Tyler Glenn and the fact that he has taken a different path now and is on this other trajectory.
Did I bring that up?
Well, you mentioned it and you alluded to it.
I alluded.
So you alluded to it, and so I'm going to bring it up full-fledged. Because bandmates wind up almost brothers and sisters. Yes. I mean, you're very, very close. How difficult was it for you to watch what Tyler was going through?
I don't know how to answer that question, because I think, I don't know how not to be candid, so I'm going to be candid with you.
Please do.
I think people always assume that our relationships within the band are closer than they actually are. And that's not to say that some people in the band aren't close, but I would not say that he and I are close friends. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So people say, oh, you're in a band together and you're like family. Well, yeah, but we're kind of more like distant cousins who work together. You know what I mean? So, and it's hard because in order to have me, have it be hard for me to watch what he's going through, I'd have to know what he was going through. He didn't talk to me. You know what I mean? So I watched with the rest of the world. So that was hard, but I don't want to paint a false picture of that we're a family and talking every day on the phone. That's just not how it is. So do you have a different question now that you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And that would be this. So as a Latter-day Saint in this band in Neon Trees with a arguably controversial lead singer now who has taken this different trajectory, what goes on inside of you as a Latter-day Saint when you see the things that he is doing and the imagery that he is doing? In his journey?
At first it was very difficult because I didn't have any warning about it, so I saw it like everyone else saw it. I actually saw it because I was going to post about it because I wanted to say, hey, my friend Tyler's doing his own music, because I was excited for him. So I didn't know what it was about. So then I knew what it was about, and then I was like, oh shoot, now I can't post about it because there's a real conflict of interest there for me, So that was unfortunate. But I think that's more of my personal reaction to my friend, going about a thing a certain way that I didn't agree with. Because I think if he would have come to me and said, hey, this is how I'm feeling, I'm going to put this thing out, and I know you're not going to agree, and I know it's going to hurt your feelings, but I just want to reach out to you first, that would have been an entirely different animal, but it wasn't that way. So my personal way, I had to kind of wade through my own personal offense first to get to the point where I could think about it objectively. But so I think at first I was just sad, and then once that was once I dealt with my own sadness, oh, I'm disappointed and sad that's the way it went down, You know, and then it was like, oh, that's sad that he's choosing to do that because of how I believe and how I think. I don't agree. And then it was just a chance for me to, I don't know, live my religion and try and treat him like Christ would want me to treat him, and be nice to him and love him, and just like I do my other bandmates. So it really, it was an issue on a personal level, but it's never really been an issue for me on a religious level. It's never really been like, oh, it's a conflict of interest. I mean, there are things we have to navigate. Like, I wish that people could understand that we're all such different people, and that's just because he has the microphone sometimes and says things doesn't mean that I'm back there going, yeah, you know? But at the same time, I'm also not back there going, no, and I'm so hateful, you know what I mean? It's just, it's a business that I'm in, and I really enjoy these people, and I disagree with them on some things, and I enjoy them on other levels, and it's just this living, breathing thing that happens to be my job also, and it happens to be on a public stage, so it makes it more complicated. But as a Christian, I just try to be a Christian in like all those situations. So there was no like, I don't know, backlash or screaming, and we got together over lunch a while after and discussed, you know, why our feelings were hurt and what we could have done differently, and you know, so we were just humans about it. And I think if people could look at that public situation and stop assuming they know what's going on, number one, and then try and learn something from it, I would hope it would be that people who disagree don't necessarily have to be mean to each other. And just because somebody says one thing is true and another person says no, it's not, does not mean that one of those or both of those sides is hateful. Which is why springboard into LoveLoud, which is why I thought that was such a neat thing, to give people of all different opinions the ability to come together in either what you can consider a Christian, if you're a Christian, or just a human kindness type of support for a group of people, the LGBTQ youth, who do struggle.
Right.
So it's like, you know, what I believe you should be doing doesn't matter when it comes to how I treat you or how I embrace you or what's happening, you know, how I see what's happening in your life. It's not my business. That's not my business. My business is to be kind to you and to make sure that you don't feel like you need to take your life. So I think that was a really unique festival to throw. Are we?
No. I'm watching your reflection in the monitor over here, so okay. I know what kind of a shot we're on. But I did want to ask you about the LoveLoud Festival, and so I want to get a clean question on
Sure.
that, so that we're dealing with that specifically. In August, we had the LoveLoud Festival, and Neon Trees played that concert. Tell me about how that came about, and your impressions going in and after that experience.
Well, Dan Reynolds from Imagine Dragons, that's really, that was his baby. He's been doing a documentary for a while now with Live Nation, kind of about the LGBTQ youth who, you know, they have a much higher suicide rate or, you know, chance.
Right.
So that's been something that's been on his mind and heart for a while, so he's been, you know, doing what he can. And I think because of his Mormon background and his time in Utah, you know, when the band was starting and he was at school and stuff like that, I think the place that he naturally thought to start it was in Utah, because that's where there is a very large disparity, you know, between, you know, support and not support, and where youth feel like, I don't know if I can say what I'm thinking or what I'm feeling out loud because people will judge. There's a real and palpable feel of like, I'm going to be judged, and harshly.
A very tenuous dynamic going on in the culture.
And even within families, unfortunately, you know, historically, it's not been weird for Mormon families, by the way, Mormons are Christians, for Mormon families to cast out children based on the way that they feel or the way that they're choosing to act, or, you know, and that's a real gentle spot where I don't want to, like, you know, step all over family relationships, because that's not my business either. But at the same time, there's been a real disconnect between acting like Christ and treating your child or your community member who has a different opinion or a different way of living that you might be, you know, disapproving of in your mind or whatever. So I think LoveLoud was trying to just start a dialogue within a community that's kind of been divided historically. And what I really appreciated about Love Loud, because I am a Christian, and so oftentimes you don't feel like you have the right to both be a Christian and supportive of an LGBTQ person, right? Like, and what does that mean, support? Because I mean, it doesn't mean you have to be mean to them, but you don't feel like you can go rally, you know, without it being confusing.
And
so
conflicting,
so I thought it was really cool that it was just a way for everybody of every opinion to come together and say, we support you kids, you know, this is tough for you, and we're not saying you're not to do this, and we're not saying you have every right to be blatant in front of your parents. We're not saying any. What we're saying is we support you and we love you. Please don't leave. You know, don't think that your only chance at happiness is death. You know, and that's like the sad matter of fact for a lot of youth going through this struggle. So it gave Mormons and Christians and people of all different beliefs about, you know, traditional marriage and stuff like that a chance to come out and support. And it gave them the right to be supportive. After the show, to speak to your second part of the question, you know, after we played, Tyler got pretty emotional on stage and just thanked everybody, you know, for being there. And after the show, I walked off stage and Dan was standing there. And I had to thank him. I was, Dan, thank you so much for making an event that an active Mormon can come to and feel comfortable showing my support and my love, you know, and we shed a tear together, whatever. It was really special. It was really special that what it was trying to do was actually have no judgment and actually have no sides. Because I hate it when we say both sides, because it's so divisive. It was nice to just say, hey, everybody, this is an issue that we all have. What can we do better? And I thought that was just a really special thing. And I was glad to be a part of it.
Do you think the concert itself made a difference?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to quantify. I think the difference that concert was going for is one of internal proportions, right? So it's not like a measurable, and we're really aiming by this concert to have reached 12,000 people and have them change their hearts, and they're going to respond to us with a survey. So it's just, you know what I mean? It's just, you can't quantify. But I'd like to believe that it at least made people think about how they're going to act towards people. You know, that what would be a real kind human Christian, if that's what you believe, response to someone, by the way, who's telling you anything, would be kindness and love and support of the human. You know, you don't have to agree to love and to support.
That's true.
It is. Not a lot of people know that. I don't know if you've checked out Twitter lately.
Oh.
It's rough.
Yeah. There is a lesson to be learned here, I think, on a much larger scale. Looking at just this issue and the LGBTQ issue and LoveLoud Festival, but everybody I've talked to, Alex Boyer, Troy Williams, Dan Reynolds, and now you, everybody seems to indicate that this is a far more universal issue than just the LGBTQ issue. That's what we're dealing with here in Utah right now, and with this festival. But it applies to a much broader population in principle.
I think everyone. I think everyone, really. Because on the one hand, something that I struggle with is how Christians are portrayed in the media, and you know how this topic specifically, and also with the race issues. And I mean, we've had a real tumultuous year, it seems, in our country, and it's making people be very, I want to choose my words carefully, because what I see is people choosing a side, right? Choosing a side, and then in vindication and support of that side, being mean to the other side, you know, while preaching, by the way, you shouldn't be mean. So I think it's created this strange climate where you almost feel like in order to think or feel or believe a certain way, you have to also have a hard line, right? And I just
militant about it.
Yeah. And I just don't, I don't agree with that, and I don't feel that way. And I think it's sad that, you know, we do that we make these divisive statements in masquerading as that we're trying to fight for love, if that makes sense, that we're trying to fight for equality and the, you know, the human family to heal, while we're just being super divisive. And that's like everybody. I'm not talking about one faction. It seems that way from all sides. So as a human trying to be a Christian, it's very hard to navigate and understand what there is to be done. So I think LoveLoud does speak to me on that level, on the principle level, not the specific level as well, because it's saying, hey, let's just come together, start a dialogue, and treat each other nicely. Treat everyone nicely. You know, like if you don't understand why somebody thinks a certain way, great, that's fine. You can have all those thoughts and feelings, but just be nice, be kind, think about that person as a valuable individual and treat them that way, you know? So I don't know if that answers your question. I just have a lot to say on the matter.
Can't even tell. As we wrap up, where do you see Neon Trees and yourself in 10 to 15 years?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I probably see myself like, what was that movie where he has to sit in the ice bath after the show? The Rocker, I think it was. Anyway, so I'm probably real old. I'll have arthritis.
In 10 to 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years? Heck
Come
yeah.
on.
15 years, I'll be in my 50s, and I'll just be icing after every show and like really sad. Anyway, but hopefully still successful. Yeah, it's all, you know, that's the price you pay. So that'll be me. I'll have the cartoon ice bags strapped to my knees, you know, and I'll have.
Well, you have said in the past that music is what you want to do with your life for the rest of your life. So in 10 to 15 years?
No, because I'd like to do acting too. You know, I wouldn't mind if I took a hiatus from beating my body up behind the drums and got to, you know, do things on camera. I mean, whatever it is, it's going to have to be in front of the camera, which is unfortunate for me and all those around me. But it's just the way I am.
Well, Elaine Bradley, drummer for Neon Trees, thank you so much for being part of Three Questions.
Thank you.